expert. You see her all the time, MSNBC, so you're last on MS. Thanks for coming in, my friend, to talk about a story you've been tweeting about and talking about before he was even missing. Because I remember like a week ago saying something to you, I'm going to D.C. about Jamal. So tell us, first of all, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for doing
so,
this.
So you know Jamal, like how well did you know him, Jamal Khashoggi? And is it pronounced Khashoggi or Khashoggi? How do you pronounce the last name?
Khashoggi.
Khashoggi. Okay,
Yes,
that's the way.
yes,
So it's not Khashoggi.
Khashoggi. I mean, you know how Americans have an issue with all the last names, so it's fine. I think I met Jamal in actually this year in March, and I was very impressed with his writing. I've been looking to meet him in person, and I was really impressed with his intellect, with his writing. I know his history. When he used to work at Al Watan, which is a Saudi newspaper, he was a royal advisor. So all of these roles were interesting. And then I saw his articles when Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, was arresting all of his royal cousins and putting them in the Ritz-Carlton and torturing them. He actually wrote a beautiful column about how much. And he tweeted and he said, if a Saudi royal can pay $1 billion to be released from jail, how much money do we, prisoners eventually of conscience, need to pay to be released from jail?
Interesting.
And I remember reading that tweet and reading his articles, and I thought, I need to reach out for this guy. He seems like the real deal. And I did. And this is how we met.
And you interviewed him, but let me ask you, do you know what? At one point, he was on the good side of the royal family. They liked him very much. Then he was on the outs at some point. Do you know what made him change? Why did he start criticizing the royal family?
Look, the royal family also changed. It went from, it started changing with King Salman. King Salman is 82 years old. He's now, he has dementia, and he gave the reins to his son, this young guy who is very reckless. And this young guy started doing things that were unprecedented and not normal, even for Saudi style. And this is when things start changing. And I think there was a space for criticism, but then MBS shut it down completely. And this is when I think Jamal wrote in one of his columns, it was bad in Saudi Arabia, but never been that bad in Saudi Arabia. And now we know. Now we know the extent that this crown prince is willing to go to send 20 people or 15 people to a consulate to chop people up. I mean, the news that came out of the consulate today, as we speak, that they killed him while he was alive. They drugged him and they start cutting him in pieces while he was still alive. Where? At the Consul General office. This is barbarity. This is evil. This is something that I honestly, I lived in the Middle East. I covered Saddam Hussein. I covered others. I never heard of anything like this. This is as evil as what Assad is doing to his own people. This is a war crime.
It's horrific. And by the way, I'm not sure if you saw it, maybe on the way here, Donald Trump, there was breaking news. He told the Associated Press, he linked the idea of Jamal and Saudi with Brett Kavanaugh. And he said he's innocent. The government of Saudi Arabia is innocent until proven guilty. He goes, here we go again. Same thing with Brett Kavanaugh.
Same with Putin.
But by bringing up Brett Kavanaugh, he's trying to get Republicans to come on board and say, hey, let's give Saudi the benefit of the doubt. Which
Kavanaugh has been accused. I don't think Kavanaugh was ever accused of chopping people up and murdering them and assassinating them. And by the way, if Donald Trump, who's the president of the United States, who have an exclusive access to intel information that you and I will never see. But he does have that. He can call the Turks and said, you know what? You've been accusing the Saudis. I want to hear these tapes. You know what? Turk, you remember when he used to say, Russia, if you're listening, Turkey, if you're listening, release the tapes. Release the tapes so we can see who is who and who is lying. Because the president of the United States is trying to cover up for a thug and a murderer that's called Mohammed bin Salman. And only for money. Only for money.
Because I want to get to, before we get into the why, I want to talk about Jamal a little bit. So you interviewed him. Where did you interview him? We're playing like a little bit.
In Miami, in Florida, but he was in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
We met first in Washington, D.C., and then I was flying to Miami where I was working at the university, and I start interviewing him there, and then I continue.
Oh.
It's multiple interviews.
Well, I want to just play two short clips. One, this is
Please.
really short, but this is about him explaining Wahhabism and the Saudis. And because we listened as quickly as we could before the show and pulled two clips. And for people who don't know, can you explain a little bit about Wahhabism and what it means in Saudi Arabia, what it's about?
It's a puritanical religious followed by the establishment, but followed by Saudi Arabia. And they claim to be the only pure Muslims, and their Islam is the only Islam and the only path to God. And this is the same ideology and theology of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and every Islamist radical group around the region. They've been promoting and enabling and financing.
Right.
And so when Mohammed bin Salman says, oh, now I'm fighting radicals, I remember Jamal Khashoggi told me, he said, their DNA is radical. What is he fighting? He's fighting himself. I mean, this is what Saudi Arabia is all about. This is the state religion.
And this is a really short clip, but this clip number is 6 with Jamal. And this is actually the voice of Jamal Khashoggi talking to Rula.
The principle of Wahhabism is anti-diverse.
Exactly.
The thing with the Wahhabi, that they claim to be the owner, the sole owner of the truth. That's what makes the Wahhabi at odds with everybody else.
And I thought it was interesting. It's a short clip there. We'll play a longer one in a second. But the idea of the Saudis viewing Wahhabism, and even themselves, on some level, Mohammed bin Salman, who is the crown prince now, is essentially running things. They view themselves like the old emperors, like divine right, like God has chosen them. So whatever they say is right.
Yeah, they think that they own the Ummah, the Islamic world, the Muslim population, and 1 billion Muslims. They have this claim because obviously in Mecca and Medina is the birthplace of Islam and of Prophet Muhammad. However, that kind of religion actually was established in a recent time, has nothing to do with the Islam that was ruling and that was practiced during Prophet Muhammad. Or there was a pluralism. What Jamal asks is for pluralism. All the followers of the Prophet, the Khalifas, whether it's Umar, Ali, and others, there was pluralism of school. There was a debate. There was a conversation. There was a dissent. And there's actually a school that was established immediately after Prophet Muhammad, that Sahaba, which is the people closest to the Prophet, but also the most scholars, need to debate the rules, and there should be contests, and there should be basically interpretation. Saudi Arabia erased all of that, erased actually part of the history of the Islamic world.
And when you have that worldview, you're not going to be one to allow dissent. And that's part of it. I mean, that's why I wanted to play that little clip where if you believe this is the only right way, then you believe everything is the right way.
Jamal used to say that Wahhabism is Saudi Arabia is the father and the mother of Wahhabism. Is Mohammed bin Salman going to stab his own mother? Well, she's under house arrest. That's what we know.
So, and here's another clip of your interview with Jamal about how MBS wants the best of both worlds, which is something we're hearing so much in the media right now. Yeah. Here's clip number 8, please.
The Kuwaiti judiciary is way more advanced than the Saudi judiciary.
That's
way more transparent than the Saudi judiciary. Why Mohammed bin Salman doesn't see that part as before? Because it will limit his authoritarian rule. And he doesn't want that. He doesn't see there's a need for that. So sometime I feel that he wants to enjoy the fruit of both worlds, modernity and Silicon Valley and cinemas and everything, and at the same time he wants also to rule like how his grandfather ruled Saudi Arabia.
So when you hear that now, what do you make of it now after what we know?
Dean, I heard it multiple times. I didn't want even to release it. This is the first time we're hearing the voice of Jamal. And I was hoping against hope that he was somehow still alive, kidnapped, or even though in my heart I knew when the moment he disappeared and I heard the news, I immediately understood that he was gone, that they killed him immediately. When I hear his voice from the grave, whatever grave they put his body in, a body that they dismembered within 2 hours, in 7 minutes, by the way, while listening to music, these thugs, exactly, they were listening to music. When I hear these words, they might have silenced him, but they cannot kill his words. His words will live in all of us. Mohammed bin Salman is sending a message to all of us that he will come after anybody that will criticize him, call him out, expose his tyranny and his thuggishness. And President Trump will cover up this crime, and he will get away with murder because he paid for his immunity. But we must continue, and that's why the midterm election is more important than ever.
And it's funny you say that. We just had Congressman Ted Luan from California last hour said the same thing when we talked about what's going on with Saudi. He said Donald Trump literally it's Trump first, America second, and the way we have to change that is the midterm. And he
it's
cannot
Saudi first, not even Trump first.
Well, he's talking about Trump, but Saudi.
And it's money, and exactly.
Well, I mean, look at Trump. Let me ask you: do you think that Trump, in the view of the Saudis, gave them a green light because there he's attacking the media as the enemy of the people, attacking the Washington Post?
For sure. He hates journalists and he loves tyrants. And it boils down to that. It boils down to the fact that he has this authority. If he could do what Mohammed bin Salman, if he had the authority, if he had somehow a way to reshape America, I wouldn't be surprised if he would do the same thing. A man that goes and in rallies and incite against people and said that he will pay the legal fees and the bills and incite against minorities and put children in cages is capable of any crimes. He's already committing crimes against the American Constitution, against American democracy. He's butchering American democracy.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Donald Trump, and I've had many experts on, is cut from the cloth of the authoritarian mold. And there's a reason he loves the Sisis of the world from Egypt. Yeah. And Erdogan in Turkey, a little bit, although he's had some disagreements, Duterte in the Philippines. And
Putin.
Putin. I mean,
Xi, Kim Jong-un, all of that. And that's
Poland. Hungary,
anybody that is white and stands and pays money and basically use thuggish and criminal ways, he's fine and he's comfortable with that. But this is really, and it's about our lives and it's about saving our democracies. And I'm telling young people who never voted in their lives, we journalists who cover the Middle East, who come from the Middle East, we've seen America going there, intervening, whether it's right or wrong in Iraq and other places. But it always somehow was backed by some principle. And it was a moral principle, somewhere, somehow, exporting democracy. We ended up importing tribalism. And I fear what Jamal said about Mohammed bin Salman being a tribal, authoritarian leader. We have in the White House somebody, and that's why you need to send to Congress new people that can put more checks and balances on him. Otherwise, our lives are in danger. Our lives, our livelihoods, our democracy, and not me only, all of us.
Right.
Anybody that criticized this president, they will come after him.
And I'm chatting with Rula Jebreal, journalist, foreign policy expert, and it's interesting the tribalism that Donald Trump has played on tribalism, just like the authoritarian leaders. Because Donald Trump has never wanted to be the president of all people. He wants to be just president of his base.
That's how he continued to talk about Jamal, saying, oh, he's a Saudi citizen. It's like, we don't care. He's not one of us. He's not one of my people. That's what he's referencing to.
So I have two other questions to ask you about potential motivation. So one is Trump is naturally feels warmly about authoritarians. Second, what about the financial situation? There was some great reporting. In 1991, Trump teetering on personal bankruptcy. At that point, Prince bin Talal buys gives him $20 million for a yacht. Then a few years later, the Saudis joined $325 million in the Plaza Hotel. 2001, they sell the condos to him. And here's the famous clip of Trump just during the campaign rally, clip number 5, about how much he does business with the Saudis.
Saudi Arabia, and I get along great with all of them. They buy apartments from me. They spend $40 million, $50 million. Am I supposed to dislike them? I like them very much.
I like them very much.
I like them very much. And also,
but he doesn't like Dr. Ford, and he mocks her. And then he goes around saying, well, I won. It doesn't matter that I mocked her.
Right.
And he doesn't like Walid bin Talal because Walid bin Talal called him a disgrace. So when Walid bin Talal was arrested, the man that saved him was arrested and tortured in the Ritz-Carlton. You know what he tweeted? He's like, well, this crown prince knows what he's doing. Well, yeah.
And that's a green light when Trump tweets support for for the Crown Prince of Saudi. He's like, I've got America on my side. And it doesn't matter how we view Donald Trump internally in this country, low approval rating, despicable guy. In the world stage, he's still the president of the United States. So when someone like Saudi, who has a long relationship with us, sees the president's on their side, I imagine it emboldens them to go, we can do whatever we want. We've got Trump on our side.
And to see Pompeo today, smiling with a guy that stands accused of murder and dismemberment of a body of a journalist inside a consulate, like the worst war crimes, the worst criminals that we ever seen in our lifetime, smiling. It sends a chilling effect, and it sends a message to everybody around the world. You can get away with murder. It doesn't matter. Because he's transforming America into this ruling American family. It's not anymore. We don't have an ambassador in Saudi Arabia. We don't have an ambassador in Turkey. We have Jared Kushner, who, guess what? Mohammed bin Salman says he's in my pockets. What does he mean by that? It would be interesting to know. The guy, both Trump and Kushner, they don't pay taxes, but they get money from these tyrants. So they basically are selling American foreign policy. If you are somebody that voted Republican and voted for Trump because you are not happy with the status quo, guess what? I have news for you. He will not back you. He will not do anything for you. Everything he's doing is for himself. And not only that, if he can take away your rights to enrich himself, he will do that in a heartbeat.
Trump, it's always about bottom line for certain things. Like, in fact, last year, a public relations firm working for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia spent over $250,000 on lodging and catering at Trump's hotel in Washington, D.C.
What do you think that is? It's a naked corruption.
It's bribery right in front of us.
Absolutely, in our face.
And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, as they call it in the Middle East, plan to invest $20 billion in private U.S.-focused infrastructure managed by the Blackstone Group. This is all. That's not even the military deal for the buy weapons. The Saudis have been pouring money into Donald Trump, so if he's not going to turn on his benefit.
And Trump fund $100 million when she visited Saudi Arabia by the Emiratis and the Saudi. All of this are bribes. This family understand one language, and that language is money. So when Don Jr. tweets horrible thing about Jamal Khashoggi, who risked his life to tell the truth,
right,
accusing him of being a sympathizer of Islamists. What is he trying to do? He's trying to do the same thing that he did to Dr. Ford. Try to muddy the water so nobody understands who is who. When Trump says he's a Saudi national, that means like he's not one of us.
Right.
It doesn't matter what happens to him. However, the country, meaning the two heads of states, well, this country is based on an institution. This country is based on different values. And I pray in some weeks, we will prove these tyrants wrong. It's a message not only to Trump, but to every dictator around the world. America still is the country, the shining city in the hill, the country that upholds the rule of law, democracy, morality, and legality. I hope this will be the answer, because this is really about your lives.
And when you flip it, the message of the Crown Prince is, if you criticize Saudi, you're going to die. You're going to be punished. They do this as an example. And it's funny when that Jamal talked about the two worlds in Saudi and what they want. And I've been to Saudi twice for comedy shows in the past. And, you know...
Don't go.
I have no, I'm not gonna. It was a long time ago. It was like 7-8 years ago. And when we did shows there, we would do it on private property, so men and women could sit essentially together, and they could hang out, and they would have their parties in private places. So they live in Saudi in the world of two faces, all of them. If you've got money, that the face of the world is this pious, very, very Muslim world, but internally you can go back to their apartment and drink alcohol with them all night and do whatever you want, and that's the world they're living in. So
the hypocrisy of all
that's
of
exactly. So so when Jamal mentioned that about the prince, I'm like, this is right in the DNA of all the Saudis, because the Saudis I dealt with were the upper crust, lots of money, young princes type.
Of course. So it's exactly. Describe also the crime. Mm-hmm. When they committed the crime and they were somehow caught, because I don't think they thought that the Turks bugged the embassy, which is dumb and stupid.
Right.
And they were operating as they're living in the 14th century. The Turks are living in the 21st century, and they bugged the embassy, and they have all the recording. Plus, Jamal himself had a watch.
Right.
So the watch was basically recording what was happening. They immediately start denying the facts. They couldn't prove evidence. Then they start changing the narrative. It's like, well, now the world is angry. What can we do? Now it's like, we'll talk about rogue killers. And Trump basically gave them that kind of narrative. And they start like, Well, whoever knows Saudi Arabia know it's top-down order. There's no way these people took private jets and flew in to butcher and dismember the body of a guy that was alive when they really cut him in pieces without somebody from the royal family having given the order. And the only man that is in charge now is Mohammed bin Salman. So next time you're doing business in Saudi Arabia, remember, you're doing business with a murderer, with somebody that is willing to send a kill team simply because somebody else criticized him. But so simply because this guy Jamal didn't go for the overthrow of the throne.
No, he wanted more due process. We had the clips. I was listening to some of the
you.
clips.
Exact, please.
You wanted codification. Well, play a teeny. Not play the whole clip. Let's play just a little bit, like the first minute of it, where Jamal is talking about the need for Saudi Arabia to have more due process. It was
Yes.
simpler reforms, not
Yes.
overthrow. Clip 7. Play like a minute.
Yes. In the end of the day, I care about driving and I care about the veil, but I care about real judiciary reforms that can allow women to be independent from that kind of, let me just say it clearly, that kind of, I find it almost has no, that cannot be, that is based only on religious interpretation and has nothing to do with actually religious laws that in Islam granted women to marry herself and do other things.
Okay, okay. Don't minimize the issue of judicial reform to women only, even though it is important.
Okay.
The ulama of Saudi Arabia repeatedly, since the time of King Abdul Aziz, they have refused codifying the laws.
Okay.
And they think codifying the laws.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we're taking a break. We're on a break. We took a break because we're hitting it. We have to do
Dean Obadallah Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. The Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. We're here live with Rula Jebreal in studio. It's on Facebook.com/Dean of Radio or at Dean Obadala on Twitter. So last thing, we have about a minute. What would you like to see? What is justice in terms of sanctions or any kind of penalty to Saudi Arabia?
I think we have a mechanism which is put in place by President Obama, the greatest president of this, in our lifetime until the orange orangutan.
Right.
I would love to see the Magnitsky Act, which is against sanctions against every violators of human rights, be implemented against Saudi Arabia at this point. It was already implemented against the Russians, which made Putin go crazy.
Right.
I think it should be implemented, and I think we should kick out the ambassador. The ambassador should be kicked out to Saudi Arabia, and I think we should implement sanctions all till the top of Mohammed bin Salman.
And I wonder if they'll do anything because Donald Trump, the neocons, the administration want to contain Iran, so they want Saudi, and then Donald Trump's got his money involved. But we have 26.
That's why we need to vote.
We have to. Rula, thank you very much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I love your insight.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for sharing some of your exclusive interview with us here on the Dean Obadala Show. I'll be right back after this with Danny Savalas is here in the house to get some legal issues we got to deal with. Be right back.